In this lecture, we will learn about ASP.NET controls. So go ahead and open your Visual Studio Community Edition we downloaded. And as we started the tutorial, you must remember we started with test Visual Studio. When we installed Visual Studio, we made this website. Go ahead and open it, and if you don't have this website there, you can just go ahead and file and create a new website. Our main motive for this lecture is to learn what are the ASP.NET controls available for us to use in our website. So in that lecture about the Visual Studio, we had made a default ASPX page, and the way we did was just right click, add new item, and select web form from there, which is an ASPX page, and that had a name of default. We hit add. In our case, I want to add it because we already have one. So when you select default.aspx, it will show up here. And now when you click on Toolbox, it will show up all the tools that you have available to put into this page. Since this is always hiding once I get the mouse from here, we will go ahead and pin it here so that it doesn't hide. Now if I go here, it won't hide up. So let's go ahead and add something label. We have all the buttons, labels, panels, multi-view, and so many other stuff that you can use on your website, but we'll be using very few out of them, and you're very welcome to test all of these one by one or learn about these one by one if you want so. So we just add a label to this, and in between we'll write name and write BR, that means break line, or say next line. And we can also go ahead and take a text box. There you go. We got a text box. Once you have both of these in ASPX folder, ASPX web page, you can go to design mode. See how that looks. It looks something like this. Now go to source back and delete both of these, right? Save it. Once you save it, the star from here hides. That means you just saved something. Now when you make some change, star would reappear. That shows that you have some unsaved changes. I'll just make this, hit Ctrl S for saving it, and go to design mode. Now ASPX page, on ASPX page, you can add controls from here. Like we did in the source page, we added label straight to here. But in design mode, you can do the same, but it would show up straight here. And this is what the main page looks like. When you hit label, there you go. So label shows up there like that. And I would go ahead and find text box. There you go. So we added text box now. I'll hit enter. When I hit enter, I'll also add a button now. So here's the button. We added a button. And we're wondering if we have the freedom to change the name. Absolutely, we have the freedom to change the name. When you double click on that, you see here label. You can type something name, text and name, and go to design mode. See what it appears now, name, right? Then for each of the control, you have a property called ID. ID basically means a unique ID for each control, so that if you want to make modification to that control, you can easily do that by finding the name or its property. Also, when you click on a label, what happens is you see the property window. All the property related to that ASP label would show up here. You can see from here. So you can add back color, you can add border color, you can add border style, and so many other stuff. But just to show you what I mean, I will go and add back color. Make it something green. And if you go to design mode, see what happened. We added the green color to that label. Now for button, like we clicked here for label, you went to source page to change the name, right? But for button, if you want to change its name to submit, how we do that? We just single click it, and it shows right now its name is button and ID is button 1. What you can do is go ahead and hit on this alphabetical, and ID shows up here. I will give it a name of button BTN name. That's the unique name for this button. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to type the button name. I want to type it button submit, and then find a property called text. There you go. So we want to name it submit, and press here. See, its name changed from submit. Now let's before we test that application, I think let me introduce you to other controls here. You have several other controls available here. You can just play around with them and take a look on those to see how that functions. But a few of the important ones were button, label, text box. Then you have file upload. Though we will not be using file upload, but this is really an awesome tool. There's calendar that we will be using. So like you saw in the website, that was the calendar provided by the ASP.NET. Now that we have made a simple website here, why don't we test how our website looks? Here is the run button provided from ASP.NET. When you click on run button, it starts a web browser in Google Chrome and runs the website you just made. So default.aspx is the first page it opens. Since it is the first time we are running this application, it may take a little time before it loads up. So we are waiting for it. There you go. So it displayed what we made. When you hit submit, it doesn't do anything. It just sends the information, but it doesn't have any information to send. Now, one thing to notice is Visual Studio just made your life easier, didn't it? You pressed run button from there and it ran your website, appointing it the server to run. That doesn't happen in PHP. When you make websites with PHP or any other thing other than ASP.NET, you have to install a server, local server. You have two options: either go with local server and install a different software to run it. For example, if you're working with PHP and want to run the PHP application on your machine on local server, you go with WAMP WAMP server or XAMPP server. They provide you the ability to run the PHP application locally on your machine. But see what ASP.NET did for you. You didn't need to do anything. When you were installing Visual Studio, it installed IIS server. This is the default server provided by Visual Studio so that you can run your application locally. And we didn't have to do anything. That's a great thing that Visual Studio provides us for the ASP.NET application. And we can run our application live here. Now we'll go back to Visual Studio and press stop our application. You are not limited to just adding the controls. You can do anything you do in your HTML. If you haven't worked with HTML ever, that's not a problem. HTML is also a web technology that you use to design your website, and that's basically called a front end, in which you use it to show something to user. Now if you type something like Prem Kumar, you can type your name and hit Ctrl S, save, and open the Google Chrome again. I didn't close that, and go here and refresh the page. See, it updated the page, so you can see whatever changes you make here, you can see the changes live here just by refreshing the page. That was the introduction to controls of the ASP.NET application. We'll be dealing more about ASP controls later in the course. I'll see you in next lecture.